We're going to start off with some elected officials, Representative Lauren Solberg, Senator Tom Bach, Senator Julie Rosen, Representative Morrie Lanning. Additionally, we'll hear from Dave Nelson, head football coach, Minnetonka High School, Melvin Tennant, CEO of Meet Minneapolis, Tim O'Connor, Executive Vice President, Hayes Companies, and Chair of the Minneapolis Downtown Council, Benjamin Graves, President of the Graves Hospitality Corporation, Harry Melander, President of Minnesota State Building and Construction Trades Council, and Wade Lunenberg, Political Director of Unite here in Minnesota. Additionally, one quick housekeeping issue. You'll note on the press releases, on the first page toward the bottom, there is a quote that says, if we wait another year to move this project forward, it will cost another $200 million. That should actually be $50 million. So please make that note. And lastly, all the folks I just mentioned can be found in the last page of your press packet. With that, Representative Solberg.
Well, good morning. Oh, you should be at a church and say good morning back to me. Yeah. I had the privilege of attending the very first Vikings game. When the starting quarterback for the Vikings got hurt, this young backup quarterback, Fran Tarkington, came into the game and electrified the stadium and the state. That started a state legacy. The same pride and support still exists and has grown. The people of Minnesota continue to have pride and support for the Vikings. They have truly become a great asset for the state. As chair of the Ways and Means Committee, I am very committed to promoting long-term investments in our state economy. The Vikings provide a great deal of economic activity and contribute significantly to the state budget. The last year Dallas Cowboys-Vikings game provided an additional $5.8 million economic activity for the state directly, and indirectly $9.1 million. I and others have been in conversation with the Vikings on how to solve the stadium issue and allow the Vikings to continue to be the pride of Minnesota. From the very beginning, we have stated that the state budget must be balanced first. To that end, a solution is in sight. Also, from the very beginning, I and others made it clear to the Vikings that no state general funds would be available. Any funding solution must meet the following guidelines. Those who benefit, those who go to the stadium, those who participate in the stadium events will pay for the stadium. A bipartisan and bicameral group of legislators will introduce a bill today that has several proposed funding sources and at least two major alternatives. One will be site neutral and allow several locations to compete for the stadium. And one proposal will be site specific to the current Metrodome site in Minneapolis. Contrary to the anti-stadium soundbites, I am confident that this is the time to address this issue and ensure the pride of Minnesota, the Minnesota Vikings, remain a strong component for our state. With unemployment in the construction industry at an all-time high and construction costs at an all-time low, this is the right time to bring this issue forward. With funding sources coming from those who benefit, those who pay or play, those who go to the stadium, paying for the stadium, I believe we will be successful this session in passing this legislation. And I'd like to turn it over to Senator Bach.
Thank you, everybody, for attending this morning. Many of you in the press have asked me over the last few weeks, where's the bill? Here's the bill. This is a stadium bill for the people of Minnesota. It seems there is some confusion about the issue of who's going to own it. And I want to just be clear, this is going to be a publicly owned facility, much like the Metrodome. In fact, I would bet that you could go to the Metrodome this week and watch a college baseball game. There are a lot of activities. Currently at the Metrodome, there are about 200 days a year where the Metrodome is used for some other purpose than the Minnesota Vikings. The same will be true for this facility. A lot of effort has gone into trying to craft a proposal that we think is a good starting point. But the work on the state budget has been the higher priority. But last Wednesday, the Senate Education Committee passed out its finance bill. And today, the Health and Human Service Committee in the Senate is going to pass out their finance bill. So today, the legislative committees in the Senate will have concluded their work, and now we're moving towards the end of the session in the conference committees. Now's the time to commit some committee time process to the issue of a new stadium. Unemployment, and many of you know I've been a carpenter all my life. Most of my friends do not have a job right now. Construction unemployment is somewhere between 30 and 50% depending on the craft. And I don't know of one large construction development project underway in this state today. This project will put thousands of construction tradespeople to work, and we anticipate that the payroll from the construction of this stadium will be in the neighborhood of $300 million of wages. Financing is at a 20-year low. And if we wait until next year, this stadium will likely cost $50 million more to construct. And I believe not only will it be more expensive, moving this project forward next year because of the difficult financial circumstances that the state is facing will also be more difficult because of next year is a budget year. So it seems to me that this is the year to do it. When you look at the unemployment that we have in this state, someone has to do something to try and put Minnesotans back to work.
Well, good morning. It's very good to be here in to talk about the Minnesota Vikings Stadium in a very bipartisan, bicameral fashion with a lot of support from the Metro and Greater Minnesota legislators. As you know, the lease is up for the Minnesota Vikings after the 2011 season. And next year, you'll have a whole new crop of legislators. You'll have a new governor. So obviously, this is the time with the situation that it is, we need to have a bill. We need to address the Viking Stadium. It's paramount. And similar to the Minnesota Twins legislation in 2006, the Minnesota Viking Stadium attracts a lot of public comment about the appropriate roles of helping build these facilities. But as we have seen with the Excel Center in St. Paul and the new Target Field in Minneapolis, once these facilities are built, there is a lot of jobs created, and the venues are in operation, and there's a lot of excitement. You just go down to Minneapolis, and you see the vitality that is occurring down there, and it's been very good for Minneapolis, Hennepin County, and for the entire state of Minnesota. So we'll all take pride in knowing we have built facilities that provide important public benefits, and that it is a public-owned facility. Representative Lanning and myself were on the Twins Conference back in '06, and that was another very interesting conference committee to be on. And I should just remind you all that it did go through the proper channels, just as this bill will go through. It saw all the committees, but the bill was not passed in the Senate floor until the very last day of session at 4 a.m. in the morning with 34 votes. So I'd just like to challenge anybody to say that Target Field was a mistake. It took a lot of work, but we got it done, and it's been very good for Minnesota. We've also heard loud and clear from the business community the importance of the Vikings and keeping them in Minnesota and keeping this as a major league state. And it's been very good for the employees, attracting different employees and their families. And I just cannot imagine Minnesota without the Vikings. So I'm just going to leave you with that. Imagine Minnesota without the Minnesota Vikings. And now, Representative Lanning.
Good morning. I'm Representative Morrie Lanning from Moorhead. Minnesotans overwhelmingly agree on 2 points. First, we want the Vikings to stay in Minnesota. And secondly, we do not want any general fund monies going to a stadium. We're very clear. Those two things are agreed to by the majority of us. And I'm pleased that a group of bipartisan legislators have stepped forward in trying to find a way in which we can have a stadium built for all the people of Minnesota without transferring any of our resources from our higher priorities, such as education, human services, and local government aids. But in order to do this, we have to first of all solve our budget, and we're close to doing that. We're confident that we'll be able to do that. And secondly, we need a local government partner. A new stadium is not going to be possible unless there's a local government that is willing to step forward and to help make this happen. That was the case for the Twins. It will be the case for any stadium now going forward. Why do we want to do this year? Well, simply, the Vikings have made it clear that after 2011, they will not continue to lease the Metrodome. And so a new home is going to have to be found. If we want to retain this great asset, this team that helps to support a quality of life in Minnesota that so many enjoy, we're going to have to do something now. One thing that needs to be kept in mind is if the team were to leave, Minnesota is going to lose $20 million or more in tax revenues, and that is money that would go to support education, human services, local aids, public safety, and the like. And so this movement is an attempt to try and retain some tax revenues coming into the state of Minnesota. With that, we're hopeful that this bill will be able to move through the legislature and get final approval. Thank you.
And now we'll hear from Dave Nelson, head football coach, Minnetonka High School.
Good morning. I'm the head football coach at Minnetonka High School. I've coached high school football in this state for the past 32 years. I'm here this morning as a representative of the Minnesota High School Football Coaches Association to speak in support of a new stadium for the Vikings. Football is the fabric of Minnesota life. More players play it, more coaches coach it, more fans watch it than any other sport in Minnesota. Football is Minnesota's game. We all share a common bond through football, our youth, high school, college programs, along with the Minnesota Vikings. As a high school football coach, I realize the positive impact a new stadium would have for all of us. This year-round multi-purpose facility would be used for numerous youth and high school events in addition to our state playoffs. I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to coach in 5 prep bowls, and I can't begin to explain and describe to you what that experience means to players, fans, schools, and communities. It's important to resolve this issue, not only to ensure that we keep the Vikings in Minnesota, but also to ensure that we continue to create lasting memories for thousands of future high school athletes. We have a tremendous relationship with the Minnesota Vikings, a relationship that we want to continue. Thank you.
Now we have Melvin Tennant, CEO of Meet Minneapolis.
Good morning. I represent Meet Minneapolis, the official Convention and Visitors Association, the organization which promotes Minneapolis as a destination for business, convention, and leisure travel. And we know that the Minnesota Vikings attract thousands of visitors and millions of dollars worth of spending into our state, into our metro area, every time they play a game. And as you heard Representative Solberg mention, we did commission an economic impact study on the January 17th playoff game that the Vikings had against the Dallas Cowboys, and found that that playoff game generated nearly $6 million of direct spending. That's just direct spending, not economic multipliers, but direct spending. And we know that Minnesota Vikings fans bring many family members with them, and they have spending in a number of areas. And in the particular economic impact study that we did, We found that they spent in the areas of shopping, dining, lodging, of course, and entertainment. So certainly a lot of spending in the community by Minnesota Vikings fans that come to the games. And of course, nearly half of those fans were outside of the metro area, qualifying them as true visitors. We also know that our ability to market the destination will be enhanced by an all-purpose stadium because there are many other events which we could book into the facility. Obviously, the Vikings have 10 games within the year, but many other events could certainly be attracted if we did have that all-purpose stadium. And I'll say that in conclusion, that our board of directors passed a resolution in support of retaining the Vikings back in September 2009. And in that resolution, it stated that we must work to keep the Vikings because of the economic benefit, as well as the fact that it enhances our quality of life and our ability to have an enhanced regional identity. Thank you very much.
Next, we'll hear from Tim O'Connor, Executive Vice President of the Hayes Companies and Chair of the Minneapolis Downtown Council.
Good morning. I'm Tim O'Connor, Chair of the Board of the Minneapolis Downtown Council. The Downtown Council represents hundreds of the largest companies and more than 150,000 employees in the Minneapolis Downtown Central Business District. We've been working since March with other business leaders, the Minnesota Vikings, and elected officials on various ideas of how to finance and build a modern, multi-purpose facility for community events and the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are a substantial asset to our state and worth a maximum effort to retain through a financial partnership with the public and private sectors of Minneapolis and Hennepin County. In many conversations with the top executives of our state's largest companies, it is emphasized again and again that our quality of life is an essential draw to recruit and retain high-quality employees to Minnesota from across the United States and internationally. Today's most educated, creative, and successful executives can live anywhere they want in our mobile economy. We want Minnesota to be a top choice for people as the place to invest their careers, to raise their families, to join in the building of our communities. The Minnesota Vikings are a key component of the amenities Minnesota needs to be a top place for employees to live and work. We appreciate the effort to build a multi-purpose facility, which would be especially well located if built in downtown Minneapolis near the current Metrodome. Our 50-member board of directors has seen the value of the Metrodome with its numerous statewide events and national tournaments on the economy of the area's hospitality industry. The Downtown Council is grateful to the legislative leaders who have offered to get discussions moving on keeping the Vikings in Minnesota. We will work with them to identify and pass the measures that make the proposed new facility a reality. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Benjamin Graves, President of the Graves Hospitality Corporation.
Hello, I'm Benjamin Graves. I'm president of Graves Hospitality Corporation. We own and manage a couple hotels in Minneapolis, a few throughout the state, and we also have hotels nationally. And I'm here today to speak on behalf of the hospitality folks in Minnesota in support of the new stadium. I can attest to certainly that playoff game that brought in a significant amount of money over a weekend that would be traditionally very slow in Minneapolis. And our two hotels in downtown Minneapolis benefited at about $60,000 to $80,000. And we're able to employ a lot more room cleaners and other people that weekend. We are very supportive of the new stadium. And not only is this a facility for the Minnesota Vikings, but as you heard, with over 200 events proposed in the stadium, 95% of the stadium is going to be used for other public functions, bringing people from all over the state of Minnesota and, quite frankly, from all over the country. This new stadium would make Minnesota competitive for larger mega events and different things that will bring in people and bring spending, bring money to our state, and help support employees of our industry. So I just want to say thank you very much. And
Well, next is Harry Melander, President, Minnesota State Building and Construction Trades Council.
Good morning. Just on behalf of the 40,000 construction workers that are part of our organization, thousands which are unemployed today, we appreciate our friends in the Senate, the House, for attempting to move this legislation forward, and we feel confident that it will. The Senate and the House and our governor has done some things to put Minnesotans back to work, but their job isn't done. This stadium, which needs to be built, which will be built, needs to be built now. The conversation has gone on long enough. We think this is a great opportunity, not only because of the numbers in regards to bidding within our industry are as competitive as they've ever have, but the staggering unemployment that we have, which is exceeding 30%. We appreciate the help, as I had said earlier, and want this thing to move forward because we need jobs and we need them now. Thank you.
And lastly, Wade Lunenburg, Political Director of Unite Here, Minnesota.
Good morning. I'm Wade Lunenburg, Secretary Treasurer of Unite Here, Local 17. We represent 5,000 members working in the Twin Cities, including 500 people serving the public every time you go to the Metrodome. There are also 1,100 people working now at the Target Field, literally double the workforce that we had at the Metrodome. And we actually would see the same kind of increase in workforce at a new facility. If you've ever been to the Metrodome, you've been served by one of our members. They are the beverage servers, cooks, concession and retail salespeople who make every game day a fun experience for anyone who goes to the Dome to see a Vikings or any of the other 200 events at the Metrodome each year. Our local is part of an international union that also represents all NFL stadiums. So we're fully aware of the difficulty that the Vikings and the facility are having in providing a game day experience for their fans that is largely positive. It simply could be and should be better. From our analysis of the Vikings' plans, we think that there could be as many as 1,200 good-paying jobs for our members, which is double the number. We base that not only on the Vikings' plans for the stadium, but also on the experience that our people are having at the new Target Field. Like many in Minnesota, we are concerned that if an agreement can't be reached to build a new stadium with the Vikings and knowing that there are other events there, our 500 members at the Dome could lose their jobs, and many hundreds more could be affected in a reduction of events in our downtown core. These are good jobs, and we ask legislators to do their best to help us build a new facility. Thank you very much.
That's all we have for speakers, and we'll open up for questions.
Where do negotiations stand with the city of Minneapolis, and if they are not the municipality, what other municipalities are being considered for a location?
To answer your question, we've had some conversations, obviously, with the city of Minneapolis, Barb Johnson, the president of the council. We understand the concerns that the city has for their funding. No decisions have been made. That's why we're doing the two different major proposals, one site-specific and one not site-specific, so that we, as I said in the opening statement, there's no particular site that has been chosen yet. There's no one particular plan, and as this goes forward, we'll have discussions with all kinds of opportunities. Keep in mind also that any of the fees that are proposed to be done will not be imposed by the legislature, but will be allow someone else to be able to impose those fees.
In terms of the purple plan with the several new taxes, Governor Lenny, the current governor, has said he will not sign any bill that has new taxes, and even the Minnesota Chamber has come out against a couple of those proposals. That seems to be a non-starter. Why even come out with that proposal if it's not going to go anywhere?
Well, Tom, it's not, it's one of two plans. And what I like about it is the idea of taxing sports memorabilia, and it's being taxed at the wholesale level. I think the governor's objection was new taxes at the retail level. I think that's what makes it different. But I think what it does do is it gives people all across the state an opportunity to participate in the financing of a stadium, because certainly football jerseys, baseball caps are sold in communities all across the state. It allows all Minnesotans to make a contribution.
The lodging and rental car taxes, the Minnesota Chamber is against, and I'm certain the governor would consider those to be new taxes.
Well, Tom, I think you're going to find There are a lot of things to like in this bill, and there are things that are going to give people some heartburn, and that is what the committee process is for. I personally have not had a meeting with the governor on this subject. I do hope that as we move through the committee process, we're going to have testimony from people that support provisions and testimony from people that do not support provisions. And certainly, at the end of the day, the governor has the final say whether he's willing to sign a bill or not.
How about the lottery? Is that an expansion of gambling? That's a threshold for a lot of lawmakers.
Well, the governor kind of issued that statement early on that he would be open to a lottery. The present lottery that he had kind of planned on was the mega bucks, or whatever they call it. That's already been counted in the general fund, so that's not available. But the lottery is at least a voluntary type of things, and the games would be related directly to sports and sports facilities, as they are doing right now. If they're related directly to the sports, it's a but-for test. Would people then buy an extra one because of sports related activity of the lottery? That's the thought of that.
Are you satisfied with the Viking contribution to this? Should it be more? And is this for a non-roof facility there based on that for their contribution?
First of all, I suppose to answer your first question, should it be more? Yeah, they should pay for it themselves, probably. You know, well, that's not going to be happening. It hasn't happened out the world. And additionally, keep in mind one thing also, that this is a facility that's used by more than just the Vikings. It is a community-owned facility as well. And I think we've had some funding ideas that go back to the theme that if you go there, if you benefit by it, if you participate in it, you're going to be paying for it. Now, your second question was?
Oh, who knows?
The roof. It's, yeah.
It was a fixed roof versus the retractable roof.
Well,
and then are they paying for their contribution without a roof?
No, I think that the thought as it goes through the process would be that they have to participate in the whole thing.
Total cost.
And it has to be a fixed, at least a fixed roof.
What's the timeline here as you see it, and do you have the votes to pass this?
Well, it's going to go through the regular committee processes in both the House and the Senate. And as we stated to begin with, the budget had to be done first. That was our #1 priority, and I think we're there. The other part of the timeline is that the timeline as it goes through the committees, that those who benefit, those who go there, those who participate in it, is a funding source for the Vikings or this stadium proposal. And I think that people will judge and vote their conscience on that. Keep in mind there's no general funds available for this particular facility, that it's a user fees that would be paying for the facility.
What's leadership say about this? Do you have any assurances you'll get this to the floor or get this even through committees?
Well, I had one brief conversation with Senator Poggemiller probably 6 weeks ago or more, and the conversation we had was about we need to get the budget resolved first. There are the outstanding issues of the Supreme Court, the $408 million of federal money. There are some unknowns relative to the conclusion of the session, but I will be having a conversation with Senator Poggemiller today. He chairs the Rules Committee. It's the second committee that the stadium bill will have to go through.
What about the Vikings? What do they say about it? And why aren't they up here supporting you?
Oh, they will be available for comments, I'm sure, throughout the whole day.
In a broader sense, is there enough time to get something like this done just because of the committee deadlines? Or are you, in fact, going to have to put this on a special track, a fast track to get it done?
Well, the reason for the delay in doing this particular bill is because we said priority was, first of all, to be able to get the budget solved. And working with the federal government has been kind of difficult, particularly in the area of health and human services. I believe last Tuesday, Commissioner Hansen had a conference call with people throughout the state and in the federal government dealing with the issue of federal funding for health and human services. And we had an update from Commissioner Hansen, I believe it was Tuesday afternoon. I'm confident now that that money is going to be available We don't know exactly when, but it seems from his perspective as well, and as from the governor's perspective, that that's going to be available. So given those parameters of being able to have the budget solved first, I think this is the prudent thing to do. We have enough time, and keep in mind that we've also had lots of talks and lots of discussions on the funding source. And we always had the funding source of, if you go there, if you benefit by it, you have to pay for it. And there are several ideas that didn't come out to be fiscally reasonable to be able to do within that particular theme.
Aside for Representative Nelson's presence, is there a reason that all the leading voices are outside the 7-county metro area where some of these taxes would fall the most directly?
There's been all kinds of people from throughout the whole state, I think.
Does it reflect that there's going to be a struggle to get metro area legislators to get behind this?
You know, I don't think so. I mean, each legislator has to make their own, up their own mind on that. But you know, if you look at the funding sources, particularly the one plan that says if you go there, if you benefit by it, you're paying for it, that's their decision to make. I'm confident we'll try our best to go through it forward.
Any chance of Racino money? Any chance of Racino money being used?
I'll let someone else. I'd like to go back to the first question that was asked. I had wanted to respond to that as well. As a longtime former local government official, I fully understand the reluctance on the part of local government officials here in the metropolitan area wanting to stand up and cheer about this proposal, because they have lots of pressures on their decision-making, putting their budgets together, and all the rest. I understand that. I understand the caution. But we need to make it very clear that unless there is some local government partner that's willing to step forward and partner with the state of Minnesota and with the team to make this happen, it's not going to happen. You know, as elected officials, whether it's on the local government level or state level, we're elected to solve problems. Minnesota has a problem, not just with the budget. We have a problem because we're going to lose one of our major assets in this state if we don't act, if we don't find a solution. We have an opportunity, the local government officials have an opportunity to retain this asset. We hope that they'll step up and help work with us.
In addition to Minneapolis, can you specifically list whatever other local partners you are speaking with, other counties, other cities?
We are not. That's up to the team. I told the team some time ago that it's their responsibility to secure a local partner, and they've been working on that. And they obviously have to do that in a careful way, because if they start publicly talking about a particular site, the price of that land is going to go way up. We saw that happen up in Anoka County, and they don't want it to happen again. So it's their responsibility to try and find and secure those local partners.
Can someone address the Racino question, whether that's a possibility?
Yes, thank you very much for coming.
Can we answer that question, please? Can we just have someone answer the question?
You know, I think it's a non-starter from the governor's standpoint. That's my understanding.
What about from the lawmaker's standpoint?
Well, you know, I think I'm a co-author of the current Racino bill, but you know, we want this to be a bill that the governor will sign as well.
Thank you guys very much for coming. The members will be available for comment throughout the day.
Lester Bagley from the Vikings will be available out in the hallway.
Come on.